Every weapon in Monster Hunter is nothing short of an adrenaline rush, with all 14 weapons bringing in their own unique gimmicks and rules to a hunt, contributing to the endless feeling that the games bring, allowing players to never feel bored of the game, and if they're willing, to try several weapons. Lighter weapons such as the dual blades and the sword and shield to carry lower damage but faster attacks, allowing hunters to dodge incoming attacks and apply status effects more easily than others. Heavier weapons such as the series flagship, the greatsword, hit slow but hit hard and require a mastery of the monster's patterns to truly master the weapon. Each hunt functions as a dance, as when you attack you have to commit, as there is no animation cancelling or dodging out the way until you land the attack. Harder monsters will require you to master their moves so that you know when the perfect opportunity to strike is. Instead of a simple hack and slash, you have to truly think about if it's worth it to attack now or to wait for a better opening. In the older pre-Generation 5 games, combat was far simpler, usually waiting for an opening attack and repeating until the monster died. This whole approach to combat felt more like a turn-based strategy game, with simpler moves forcing you to respect the monster's turn unless you wanted to be heavily punished and take a heavy hit or card and be sent back to camp. Additionally, in the older games, using items forced you to stand still, forcing the player to think about what the optimal time to heal or use any item would be, so that they could minimize not being hit. The ideal strategy was to run to another zone to heal and come back, but when the hunt is getting heated, you are forced to stand your ground and take a risk at being hit, especially if you are hunting something aggressive like an Argacuba or a Rajon. Starting in Monster Hunter World, Capcom introduced the quality of life for hunts, such as the ability to move while healing, which disrupted the combat. Now you can avoid attacks far more easily. With Generation 5's portable title, Monster Hunter Rise, you can now do that on your Palamute mount. And not only that, but you can also sharpen your weapons, letting you chase down monsters faster. With the advent of Monster Hunter Wilds, rideable mounts came back, but with the added improvement. You can automatically track the monster, and they can pick you back up when you get knocked down. Of course, purists found this as something that would dumb down the difficulty, and the games felt easy, creating tension between old and new fans. This discourse has always existed though, as fans have always complained about how the latest game is easier than the last, such as when Palicos were added as hunting companions in the second generation. But we must remember that the veterans are going to be far more experienced and poured thousands of hours into these series. So of course they will find earlier hunts easier, while newbies struggle on the same monsters. Take for example, Anjanath in Monster Hunter World. New players found this monster extremely difficult and often regarded it as the first wall in the game that players will face, while veterans who play the world for the first time should clear him without any real struggle. With Monster Hunter Wilds enhancing the combat further, it hasn't just updated the way weapons play and feel, but also changing the way players think and strategize around monsters. The game forces you into a more believable ecosystem that feels alive and has several points around the map that you can use to your advantage, such as falling rocks that you can drop on a monster, or quicksand, or luring the monster into another monster's territory to force a turf war. The strategy evolved from just thinking about patterns to weaponizing the ecosystem, living up to the rule hunters live by, which is to live and die by the environment, and to respect it. Gimmicks. It's what fans like to throw at each new game to describe the Monster Hunter games. But what if those gimmicks are the same reason the combat stays timeless and so beloved to many? To prove it, we need to look at the bigger picture. Pillar 1 is a non-negotiable bedrock to the combat, the weight of the weapons and the consequential play. Pillar 2 is the evolution of the combat, going over every new mechanic such as the wire bugs, the clutch claw, you name it. It's a stress test for our foundation. And the final pillar, the randomness that turns hunt into puzzles. By the end, you'll see how your favorite mechanic is essential to the longevity of the franchise. Weapons are separated into two separate classes, heavy and light, with heavy offering great defense, high impact, and high damage at the cost of slower attacks such as the iconic greatsword and hammer. Then you have lighter weapons which feature faster attack speeds, better mobility, at the cost of lower damage per hit. Weapons in this class would include the Master of All Trades, Sword and Shield, and the Speedy Dual Blades. Out of all the weapons, there are two classes, and they are divided into one being Blade Master, featuring higher defense, and Ranged, featuring lower defense, but higher elemental defense to compensate, and in the older games this would come with two armor sets for the classes. One offering less inventory space for your ammunition, adding extra strategy. In modern games this was removed, but special ammo types are still limited, adding strategy on when the best time to use something like a paralysis coating is. The greatsword demands extreme patience, being the heaviest hitter of all the weapons, doing the most damage per hit. Of course, this comes at the cost of being incredibly slow. The weapon's ultimate move, the true charge slash, has to go through several charge attacks to get to this final stage. However, this is already risky, as on its own, charging the weapon, even by skipping to the final stage by tackling after charging, comes at a risk as you're still completely still. Then once you unleash the strike, the monsters can still move out the way, which is why it's best to wait when someone in the party paralyzes it, it's stunned, or it falls asleep. The dual blades specialize in fast attacks, lower recovery times, and letting you move around the monster like someone that didn't take their ADHD meds and proceeded to ingest a crap ton of coke. This speed, however, comes at the cost of your stamina, which starts to deplete when you activate demon mode. However, even when you mitigate that effect with dash juice, you can still run out and put yourself at risk, leading you to think about when the best times to use it are. This weapon is also the king of elemental attacks. Dual blade mains will often have pairs for every element just to exploit an elemental weakness, or to play support, and use paralysis or sleep. The light and heavy bowguns may seem alike, but each have their own unique mechanics which separate them. The light bowgun will fire more rapidly and functions great as a support, while you fire off status coatings to support your team. The heavy bowgun is far more aggressive and comes with a guard to block incoming attacks, whereas the light bowgun allows you to slide out of the way of danger and reloading while also doing that. The jack of all trades is the sword and shield, which can guard, apply status effects, it can do elemental damage extremely well, it can also stun monsters, it can go into the air when it wants to, it can even function as a support. The weapon is recommended towards beginners, but it demands a steep learning curve, with everything that comes along with it. Despite being able to do everything, it is not a master of any, yet it is an incredibly strong weapon. This brings me into my next point. Some weapons are far better suited for certain monsters, such as going into a furious Rajang hunt, with a greatsword being extremely punishing. This forces players to master the monster if their weapon struggles against something they struggle with, such as exploiting openings and rewarding players instead of forcing them into a certain weapon. Take, for example, Monster Hunter World's Elatrian Hunt. Every weapon for this fight has had its elemental damage amplified based on the weapon's attack speed, so that the hunt wouldn't be dominated by just dual blades. Each game tends to carry combat changes to shake things up and to give each game its own unique identity. Take, for example, Monster Hunter Tri, which brought in underwater hunting, changing hunts by allowing you to move in all 360 degrees, and also by changing your moves while underwater. This mechanic has not seen the light of day again due to how clunky it felt at times while using your weapon. However, it was brought back somewhat in Wilds for the climax of the Lagiacrus hunt. Monster Hunter Generations brought in a great amount of customization to your arsenal by introducing the hunting styles and the hunter arts such as counters, powerful attacks, or buffs that change how you use the weapon. Additionally, the hunting styles also change how weapons behave, with aerial replacing your roll with a jump allowing you to mount monsters more easily. Depth style giving you a bar that you have to fill up, and then when you fill it up, you get a secondary move that gets a change, such as the longsword with its disgusting counter that is the most overpowered thing the series has ever seen. In Monster Hunter Rise, they introduced the wire bugs, allowing hunters to move around the map like Spider-Man, but also allowing hunters to get back up after being knocked down. But this comes at a risk, as if you do it too soon, you can get hit again, wasting the wire bug. But movement and recovery isn't the only thing about wire bugs, but also something close to what Generations brought by customizing your moveset and replacing certain moves with different ones. The Rise expansion doubles down on this, allowing you to switch between two movesets, coming up with a dodge, and allowing more creativity for builds and how you attack. You would think the only true endless game would be Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, with its hundreds of quests and the largest monster roster, but every game can be considered endless, and will net you hundreds of hours of playtime no matter what you like to do. First of all, would just be plain hunts by themselves. No two hunts are the same. One monster can wipe the floor with you on one hunt, and then the next try you clear it easily, thanks to it not using a certain attack or catching you in an unfair spot, or attacking you until you cart. Next up would be challenging hunts you can take in optionally. Monsters such as Omega Fatalis, and Electrion, offering high difficulty that involves memorization of their attack patterns and when to strike. Such as when Fatalis has its fan-shaped breath, it will lower its head, allowing it to swoop in and get a few clean hits on its head and break its horns, which is a true godsend for shorter range weapons like dual blades. Or take for example the highly aggressive Rajang. When it curls into a ball and bounces, it will land, allowing a small window to attack. And also, it shoots a beam from its mouth, allowing you a long window for attack. Monsters also come with rare drops which require you to hunt the monster several times over, in an attempt to get this rare part that you will need for your build or for your latest fashion armor set. With these repeat hunts, you may think that it may also get boring, but it never does, as hunts require you to pay attention to the movements of the monster at all times, keeping you on your toes even when hunts usually go on for half an hour and can last up to 50 minutes. The environments can also be weaponized, as there could be a monster roaming around that can invade, like Basiljuice or Deviljho, which intrude on your hunts or can run into your target and trigger a turf war, dealing high damage, helping you and also helping to make the world feel more alive knowing how these monsters act with each other. Even with the changes to the combat and repetitive hunts, the combat of Monster Hunter stays fresh, not only through the same game by mixing up things to keep you guessing, but also throughout the series by adding and evolving mechanics, keeping what works and throwing out what doesn't. But also sometimes by adding certain mechanics to one game to give it its own unique identity, helping the world of Monster Hunter to not only feel more lived and giving hunters from certain villages unique abilities in their arsenal. Okay, so this video took longer to make. I got really busy with work. I was getting pretty overworked. I was doing lots of overtime. But I also I'm done with the semester, so now that those two things that are keeping me from uploading videos are out of the way, I'm gonna try to pump out some more videos for you guys as I have more free time. And with that, until next time, like, comment, subscribe. It shows your support, it keeps me motivated, and shows the support to my channel. And until next time, see ya.